In this video, I'm talking all about the day and night dress challenge. So let's get into it. Elizabeth from ElizabethMadeThis.com, and I am here to bring you lots of sewing tips and inspiration and tutorials to help you sew better, sew faster, and sew more creatively. If that's something that is up your alley, don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss a thing. Today I'm talking about my dresses for the day and night dress challenge. If you've watched my other videos about the day and night dress challenge, this is a challenge that I started last year with a group of other bloggers to just make pretty dresses. So the idea was that you make a day dress, something that you can kind of wear in your everyday life, and then an evening dress. And last year we had to make little black dresses, but this year the theme is totally different. So this year the theme is coffee and cocktails, and your coffee dress is just a really casual day dress that you could, you know, go and have coffee with a friend, and your cocktail dress is a cocktail dress that would, you know, take you out to a nice dinner with your significant other, or, you know, just if you wanted to go out and get a drink with you know, your group of lady friends. I know in Australia, I think somewhere in Australia they do something called frocktails, so everybody makes like little like dresses, and then they go out for cocktails, and I think it's a wonderful idea. So that was kind of my thinking behind the cocktails theme. But anyway, I am wearing my cocktails dress, and I will stand up a little bit and show it. I have better pictures on my blog, of course, but so I've got this lace that I got from stylishfabric.com. And I have these buttons. So the buttons started out as plain wood buttons. So this dress is my take on a Nanette Lepore dress called the Varsity lace dress. You can Google it, it's really cool. But the dress has like this overdress made in lace, and it's kind of a short dress style, but sleeveless. And then it has buttons all down the front of it, and then it's got an underdress, which is just kind of basically a slip with a sweetheart neckline, and the slip is this vivid orange color, which I thought was really, really cool. I think one of the cool things about working with lace is that it totally changes character depending on what color you put underneath of it. So let me grab my lace. So this is just an extra little bit of my lace. You can see it's got nice open spaces in it. It's not the exact same kind of print or pattern, I should say, that the Nanette Lepore had. Hers is more of a bigger floral design, but it had lots of open space in it, so you could see lots of details in there. But this one, you can the flowers are smaller, but there is still that open space, so that when you put the color underneath of it, you can still see lots of detail there. So I've got my lace, and if I put it against, this is the fabric that I used for the button placket, and also for the bias hem and the armholes. So I actually put 3 layers of bias tape that I cut from that fabric as that. That's not on the original dress, but it's a detail that I wanted to add because I think it's a fun detail on lace. So anyway, so here's that contrast fabric. It's almost exactly the same color as the lace. I found this at Joann's. It was actually really nice. So if I put the lace against this, you can see that you can see the pattern of the lace a little bit, but it really kind of disappears. It's nothing really to write home about. So this is something you could use, this kind of tone on tone effect, if you were going for a lace effect that was like pretty subtle, and yeah, just pretty subtle. If I put it against white, it's a little bit different. You can see now, I can see the lace a little bit better. I can see the design a little bit. But if I go for the coral, and this is a coral interlock that I got from Stylish Fabric, and I personally love the color. I think it's just kapow, just in your face. you can see that lace, like that design, like super pops, and the contrast is just really pretty. So that's what I was going for with that, and pretty much I just copied kind of the same idea. I used for the pattern, I used the bodice from the designer stitch Kristen dress. It's got princess lines and darts in the back. I made sure that all of my seams were I folded them over against themselves and just kind of stitched them in place. I didn't do French seams, but I did kind of similar kind of thing to a French seam. So I seamed it, and then I cut down one side of the seam, and then I folded it over. I folded the larger side of the seam over that and just stitched it in place. I don't have to worry because this is a stretch lace, I don't have to worry about it fraying on me. I should say it's a stretch lace, but it doesn't have a lot of stretch. It's mostly mechanical stretch. It's not like it drapes more like a regular lace. So it's a little bit different. But anyway, because it does have stretch, I don't have to worry about it fraying. So I was fine with just folding it over on itself and just stitching, because I know it wasn't gonna ravel on me at all. So I did that for all of the seams. And okay, so that's the bodice. It's the designer stitch Kristen dress, and I used the sleeveless version, and because sleeveless armholes are my nemesis, I just left the seam allowances in place, because I knew that without them they would dip too low for me. So I just left them as they were, and I just covered the armholes with my bias tape, just so it's snug against the edge there. So actually the armholes are a little bit smaller because they're not trimmed, they're not folded back on themselves in the seam allowance. But that works for me because I am really short between here and my bust, and I always need smaller armholes circumference wise. So sleeveless armholes are terrible for me. They're really hard for me, but designer stitch, like, she does a really good job of getting really close. It's very difficult for me to get close on a pattern, so that's why I went to this pattern, because of like, I know that it's almost there. So I tried getting rid of this, taking the seam allowances out of there, or just leaving the seam allowances on it, and it was perfect. So that was great. So that gives me an extra 3/8 of an inch just right there at the base of my armhole, and all around. And that's okay too, because the way that this particular dress was designed on the Nanette Lepore, it was a very wide shoulder, because to show off the lace and to show off the contrast beneath. Okay, so for the slip dress, I used the bodice from a Berta style pattern. I just found something that had a sweetheart kind of neckline, and it has several different pieces. There's five pieces. So there's 4 pieces in the front, and then there's just one back piece, and then I just made little straps for it. And then the skirt for the slip is a modified version of the Cassandra dress from Valentine Stitch, just from the waist down to the knee, and I shortened it a little bit. And oh yeah, the skirt for this dress. So the skirt for this dress is just pleated. It's just a big rectangle, and I pleated it using a fork. So I will show you that process in the next clip. So I'll see you in the next clip for that. Okay, so I'm working on this section of pleated fabric, and you can see I've done all of these pleats and more. But what I want you to notice about it is that the fabric in the pleat is 3 times, each pleat is going to take up 3 times the width of the fork. So if you use a wider fork, and this is just a little olive fork, if you use a wider fork, the pleat itself is going to be wider, but it's still going to take up 3 times the amount of fabric. Because what I have when I do this kind of pleating is I've got the width of the fork when I go to turn it, and then the other side of the fork. So it's bump, 2, 3 for each pleat. So if you need 20 inches of pleated fabric, then you're going to need 60 inches of fabric so that you can turn it into that 20 inches of pleated fabric, if that makes sense. Okay, so now I've got my pleats, and I'm gonna drop my needle into the last pleat that I just made, and I don't want to stitch all the way to the end of that pleat because it'll be harder to make this next one that I'm gonna do. And I'm just gonna, my needle's down, but my presser foot is up right now, and now I'm gonna make my next pleat. So I'm going to stick the tine into the fabric just at the top, and I'm going to flip it towards the needle, and I'm going to hold it there with my finger to make sure that it is right next to that last pleat that I just made. And I'm going to stitch over the last pleat all the way, and I can see that it wants to shift on me just a little bit. So if it does, then just go back and make sure that it does that. Okay, I'm going to stitch one stitch into the pleat, and I'm going to make my next one. So tine goes on the top, and I flip it towards it. Now I'm going to stitch all the way across the last pleat I just made, and then go one stitch into my next one. Okay, and you can see I'm really keeping my fingers really close, just to make sure that those pleats are right on top of each other. That way the pleats are going to be even, and there's also not going to be any weird gapping that can happen sometimes with pleats. You can certainly do this motion with your whole length of fabric and use pins to hold the pleats in place. But if you're working with a fabric like this, which is really drapey and super fluid, the pleats might shift, and they might end up being super uneven. So we don't want that. So I'm just gonna hold it with my fingers, and that is just easy. And I just have one last pleat to go for my whole length of fabric here. You can see how quickly this goes. It's, you know, if you were to sit there and measure out all of these pleats and then set them and iron them, it could take a really long period of time. But this is very fast. You don't have to measure, and really you get nice even pleats. Now if you're working on a natural fiber fabric, like, obviously lay these down on your ironing board at this point and give everybody a really good press. This is nylon lace, so it is not going to hold. It's not going to hold a press at all. So if that is the case, then just don't worry about it. Do give it a press, but you've done the hard work of doing all of this, and now you can go ahead and add it to whatever garment that you're doing. So I have several different samples of fabric that I've done this fork pleating with, and you can see, even though I used different forks for all of them, they all end up, I mean, really pretty much almost precisely the same length. So even though all of the forks are slightly different widths, what I end up with is, samples that end up taking up 3 times the amount of fabric. And that's also, I mean, that's what I showed you guys, that it's, when you go to do this kind of pleating, you start out and you get the width of your fabric on one side of the pleat when you go to turn it, and then on the other side. So if I fold this out, you get fork, turn, fork. So 1, 2, 3. So, yep, even though it's kind of interesting, even though you have different size forks, you get fabric that ends up pleating exactly the same length. So which kind of fork you use for this technique is just really a preference of how deep you want your pleats to sit. So this cocktail fork is going to make a much smaller width pleat than my jumbo regular fork would. That one's about almost an inch wide, and this one is closer to like 5/8 of an inch. So yep, it's your choice this is a choose your own adventure moment in fork pleating. So that's my cocktails dress. I think it turned out really great. My husband and I are going to go out for a little late Valentine's Day dinner. We're going to sushi, so that should be really fun. But we yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. That's my nice dinner that I'm going out to in my cocktail dress. I'm going to have sushi with my husband. But I also want to talk about my coffee dress. So this is my coffee dress. So it is the Cassandra dress from Valentine and Stitch. I kept it mostly like it, but I was really inspired by this Anthropologie dress. So I should say, as is, the Cassandra dress is kind of, it's kind of like a higher neck. And there's also the scoop neck variation, so I chose the higher neck because of what I did in the back, which I'll show in a minute. Dress, and it just has kind of a basic sort of A-line kind of shape to it. I brought the sides in kind of considerably so that it would fit me better, and I also added a waist seam, and I had made a muslin of this on a top, and I just drew a line because my muslin is actually a striped fabric, so I picked the stripe that was closest to my waistline, and that I transferred to my pattern and put a seam allowance on either side of that, and that's my waist seam for that, because I was copying a dress that I saw at Anthropologie, and it has like these little frills on the sleeve, and I will show you how I drafted that. It's super easy to add that, and then my last addition that I made to this was in the back. There's a little keyhole in the back, and then I folded it over on itself around the keyhole, and I put two little buttonholes, and also two tiny little buttons. I love the look of that on the Anthropologie dress, and I thought it would be really simple to do. The only thing that I would say about this pattern as it fits me, I have really narrow shoulders. It doesn't look like I have narrow shoulders in my body, but in comparison to patterns, I'm very narrow on patterns. So oftentimes I have to grade down the shoulders and the neck in almost every company's patterns, with the exception of basically Jolly patterns. And it's because that they have like girl size patterns in their huge envelopes of 22 sizes. So I can always trace off one of their size lines for what I need, because like if I was gonna trace a Berta, I'm actually like a 32 in my shoulders, so very narrow in my shoulders. So what happened on this particular pattern was I graded down the shoulders, I graded down the neck, and it was still a little bit too wide. So the neck is okay because it's a pretty high neckline, but my shoulders still needed to come in about a 1/4 inch on either side. So I did just a narrow shoulder adjustment on the pattern kind of after I had basted the side seams. So actually to the cut pieces after I basted the sides. And basically what happened there is that I took a 1/4 inch from the top of the sleeve cap, and then just drew a tiny little line in there with my French curve until it came back into the normal size, into where the seam line happens on the rest of the sleeve. So it's just the very tiny top of the cap. It's in a 1/4 inch. So I did that on the shoulder seam, and also on the sleeve. But yeah, that's the only thing about fitting, and then I brought the sides in. But I love this dress. It is just so comfortable to wear. I want to wear this like all the time. I'll probably put it with tights, or when the weather gets a little bit warmer, I'll just kind of go with flip-flops or whatever. But I also thought that what would be fun is to make a little jacket to go with it. So I had this faux fur in my stash, and it's a really funky faux fur. That's all I can say about it. It used to be a blanket that was in my house, and I love it. It's so cozy, and it's got like this pattern on it, which is kind of interesting. So it's really weird. It's not minky, but it's not like a faux fur that looks animal-like. It's kind of halfway in between. So it's a really unusual fabric. But I used that for my outer bit. And I used a motorcycle jacket pattern that I've made before. It's from Octobre, and it's for knit. It's for a knit motorcycle jacket. I really like that pattern. I loved how it turned out the first time I made it. So I used that pattern, I cut it off, I cropped it by 4 inches, and I pretty much made it the same way. Other than that, I took off the sleeves and I bound the sleeves with some ribbing from a sweater knit, and I also used the same sweater knit for the big gigantic collar. And the collar really, the pattern is actually for a hood, and I love how it works with the motorcycle jacket, because here, I'll put it on, see it a little bit better. With the zipper, because our motorcycle jackets, the zipper comes over center front, and I guess the idea is that if you're actually riding a real motorcycle, when you bend over, it's not putting like pressure like down the center, like down your center front, something like that. So that's why the zippers on motorcycle jackets are asymmetric, which is kind of interesting. But on the original pattern, it's a hood, but because it's coming over center front, what you get is a lot of protection for your neck, which is really, really wonderful. So that particular jacket is actually falling apart. It's my one jacket that I've actually worn out because I've worn it so much. So I actually need to make that one again, because it's probably my most worn jacket that I've made. But I love the hood, and I just did something different because this is the fabric that I had that matched it really well, and I love that it kind of falls open and it's kind of different. But the reason why I wanted to make a little vest is because I still wanted to show off my cool sleeves. So this is kind of my addition. So I think this is gonna be cool for me to go around town with my kids, and you know, if I've got some sneakers on or something like that and it's still windy. Like this time of year is always kind of funny for us because like today it's like 65 degrees. It's amazing outside. But it's like crazy windy. I just took my pictures for my cocktail dress, and like all of them are like, my hair is all over the place. It's a mess. But that's just you know, the beginning of spring in Colorado. It kind of takes us a little bit of while, and that's what we come into. And so if I've got like a nice vest that I can throw over the top of something that feels more springy, I am guaranteed that I'll be at least a little bit warmer on a day that's a little bit windier. So if I've got something that I can throw over the top of a, you know, a warmer springy kind of getup, then I will still be protected from our crazy biting wind that might be coming up. So that is my ensemble for the day and night dress challenge and my 2 dresses, but I want to know what you are making for the day and night dress challenge. So you guys have until March 5th to post your dresses on Instagram, and when you post your coffee dress and your cocktail dress, you can do them in 2 posts or the same post, just whatever you want to do. You can model them, you don't have to model them, whatever you want to do is totally fine. Just tag me at Elizabeth Made This with the hashtag Day and Night Dress Challenge, and you'll be entered into the prize pool for all of the prizes. But and stick around on elizabethmadethis.com for all of the dresses from my blogging team and from the other vloggers here. So everybody's posts will be happening there, and they will be amazing, and I am so excited to see what my team comes up with, because I know they're gonna do just an awesome job. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and share it with your friends. Thanks for watching. Happy sewing. I just lost it. Where's my button? Button you most wonder. Where is my button? If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and share it with your friends.